She didn't know why she was doing it. All she knew was that when she stopped, they started dying. Ella March had always been a terrible artist. She knew this. It wasn't like there was some kind of twisted talent she possessed for painting people so realistically that they looked alive, or that her work was so unnervingly accurate that the subjects felt compelled to buy her paintings of them. Not because they liked them, but because they were creeped out by how much they looked like her art. No. Her talent was that she was very bad at art. So when Ella saw the news report about the copycat killer, she thought it was weird that her name was the leading suspect. The copycat killer had struck again, and this time the victim was still alive. The press was clamoring over the fact that the killer had apparently copied the face of their latest victim from a portrait painted by 23-year-old Ella March, an up-and-coming artist who had already made a name for herself with her photorealistic paintings. But Ella hadn't painted this woman. She did vaguely remember painting someone with similar hair, though. Someone whose face she couldn't recall. So she'd gone to the police and told them she'd painted the woman, but not this one. This one was different. She'd only painted her from imagination. But since then, things had been really bad. The cops clearly weren't buying her story. And after they finished questioning her, Ella had tried to throw herself into her work, hoping that if she could just prove that she wasn't a murderous artist, everything would go back to normal. But it didn't. Every morning she woke up with a new face in mind, a face she'd never seen before, a face that she knew nothing about. And then she would spend all day trying to copy it as accurately as possible onto canvas. And every time she finished, exactly 1 week later, she'd see that face on the TV. Except it wouldn't be on a news report about her art. It would be on a missing person report. The first time it happened, she'd actually called the cops, but they'd just laughed at her and hung up. By the fourth time, she was too afraid to even call them. She was starting to get really scared, but she didn't know what to do. Who calls the cops when they think they might be a serial killer? Her therapist said it was just anxiety. Her parents said she should take a break. But Ella couldn't stop. She didn't know why she was doing it. All she knew was that when she stopped, they started dying. It was driving her insane. She spent all her days trying to capture these faces down perfectly, desperate to make sure that her art would lead to a missing person report, not a murder one. But her efforts seemed almost comical now, because although she was able to copy the details of the faces remarkably well, none of the paintings ever looked quite right. They were just off. She couldn't put her finger on it. Thing was wrong, but she couldn't tell what. Then one day, it hit her. She was looking at the painting of the latest face she'd captured, comparing it to the missing person report on the TV. And that's when she realized that everything was perfect except for one thing. Their eyes were always different in her paintings. They were always looking in the opposite direction from the person in the missing person report. In the painting, the girl was looking down and to the left. In the report, she was looking up and to the right. But it wasn't just a difference in perspective. The way Ella had painted her eyes, they looked haunted. And the way she'd painted them on the missing person report, they looked hopeful. Ella stared at the screen, horrified, as she finally realized what was happening here. She wasn't painting these girls. She was painting their ghosts. That's why she couldn't stop. It's why she had to keep painting them. This was bound to them by magic, or maybe a curse. By some kind of cosmic force that compelled her to paint the faces of lost souls and send them on their way. Maybe that's why she'd been chosen, because she was such a bad artist. Maybe the spirits were using her as their vessel, granting her the ability to paint their portraits, allowing them to move on. But if that was true, then why were the eyes always wrong? Why didn't they look the same in her paintings as they did in the photographs? Why did they look hopeful in the reports and haunted in her paintings? Ella didn't know. She was scared, but she also felt kind of excited. If this was a curse, then it was one that she kind of wanted to keep. She loved that her art mattered, that it saved lives. She just hated that she didn't know who she was helping. She wished she could see their faces, find out who they were, maybe bring them home. So one night, as she sat alone in her room painting, she decided that she was going to stop accepting work from the spirits. She would resist their ghostly whispers, shut out their voices, and try to listen to her own. When the sun came up the next morning, she went online and deleted her account. Then she turned off her phone and waited for the inevitable news report. She didn't have to wait long. Within hours, the first story popped up. A young woman had gone missing in the middle of the night. She was last seen leaving a bar downtown, but nobody had seen her since. And when Ella looked at the picture of her face, she knew what she had to do. So she pulled out a canvas and began to paint, trying to block out the spirit whispering in her ear, telling her to paint the right eye looking down. She fought against it, but it was hard. The voice was getting louder now. Ella could feel its anger, could hear its rage. But she didn't care. She wanted to help this girl. She wanted to bring her home. As the painting neared completion, Ella made a decision. She was going to finish this portrait without the help of the spirit inside her, without any ghostly assistance. She would do it on her own, relying only on her skill, her imagination, her heart. And when she was done, the portrait was unlike anything she'd ever done before. She hadn't copied the girl's eyes from the photograph. Instead, she'd made them her own, giving the girl hope instead of haunting her with fear. And when the police showed up at Ella's door 2 days later, not to arrest her, but to thank her for helping bring their missing girl home, Ella smiled, knowing that no matter what, she was in this alone. But then something strange happened. As the officer was leaving, he turned around and asked Ella if she had painted anyone recently, anyone important. He didn't say why, but Ella could tell that whoever was in the next missing person report was someone special to her. She lied and said no. The officer left, but as soon as he was gone, Ella felt the spirit inside her stir. She closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable, and waited for the voice to start its song. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. This time, it was a scream. "Open your eyes," it roared. "Look behind you." Ella slowly turned around and looked out the window behind her. On the TV, playing on a loop, was the missing person report. And as she watched, horrified, Ella March was crossed out, along with her name, age, and address, everything except for her eyes. They were still visible, staring blankly ahead, looking not at the camera, but at her.